Hey, good people, welcome back to Monk's Book List. So today we have a story time. So for story times, usually people have a hot beverage. I got myself a hot beverage. In this cup is some salted caramel tea with a fourth cup of milk and a splash of honey. And it is so good. It smells like Christmas in here right now. I love this tea. Like anytime that I'm feeling down, I get this tea. I make this tea. And this mug is awesome. One of my husband's employees went to Canada, and she was so sweet, and she brought him back this mug. And I love mugs, so he's letting me use it. So before we get into the story time, I gotta take a sip. I hope you have a beverage. Take a sip. Take a sip. We're gonna sip together. All right. Few disclaimers. First disclaimer. Yes, we're gonna talk about some fat fairies on the side of the road. I was one of those fat fairies. Fairies. The other two fairies were my bestie and our other friend. And they actually, I don't want anyone to think I'm just talking disparagingly of them. We all agree that that's what we look like. Three fat fairies on the side of the road in Kentucky. We don't live in Kentucky. We live in a major city 3 hours away from Kentucky. So yeah, so I wanted to just say that, I'm not body shaming anybody. We all thought it was funny. We all called ourselves that. And none of us hate ourselves. So none of us hate our bodies or hate ourselves. Just putting that out there. I don't want no problems. All right, so let's get into the story. Give you a little backstory about myself. I have been making costumes and clothes since I was about 12. And I've always been interested in anything that has to do with making a costume for me to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. So when I moved here and I met my best friend, and I'm going to just use the name Charlie. We're going to call her Charlie. When I met Charlie, she was making costumes and going to Renaissance fairs. And I didn't know that the state of Ohio had them. I knew that I knew that the state I grew up in, North Carolina, had them, but I didn't know that in Ohio they had them. So I was really excited when I met her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I go to the Renaissance fairs every year. And do you want to go?" And I was like, "Hell yes, I want to go." So we started going to Renaissance fairs together here in Ohio. And then we were like, well, we've been to this one so many times. It's the same thing. Why don't we venture out? So we've been to Renaissance fairs in Illinois, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, Kentucky. Where was the other one we went to? Another one in the state of Ohio. Did we go anywhere else? No. Those are the only ones we went to. We've been to other festivals and stuff around the world. I mean, around the world and around the U.S. too together. But we've always been in the Renaissance fair. So we always make backstories about our costumes, and usually we dress like a specific type of character, or we dress up as a fictional character, and that's where it comes in the fairies. So, side note, we had been fairies at the fair. We went to the fair in Wisconsin. We dressed up as fairies too. So this wasn't the first time we dressed up as fairies. It was just the first time we did this dumb shit. So we decided that we wanted to try to hit all the ones closest to us from Ohio, like we could get to very easy, 4-hour, 5-hour drive at most, and try to get to them on a weekend. So we picked this fair in Kentucky, and we drove there, fun way down. And let me give you some more backstory. My friend's car is a Honda. What was it? A Honda. This car was old. It was 22 years old when this happened. That's how old this car was. And this car literally, it was like the equivalent of a Ford Escort. If anyone is old enough to know what a Ford Escort is, it is that small, and it has a hatchback. And you have 3 big old girls in this car. Okay. And she didn't check her, normally she would go get her fluids checked to make sure the engine's good before we go on long distance trips. This is not the first time we took this car, somewhere far. We've gone to Pittsburgh 3 times in that car. We went to West Virginia in that car. Where else did we go in that car? we have been a lot of places in that car, and that car has been good to us. So so we didn't think there would be any problems with this car. So we drove down to Kentucky. We check in our hotel that night, get everything ready, and we decide that night that instead of taking clothes with us to change, to dress in our normal clothes and take our costumes with us and dress there at the fair. Because most people who go to Renaissance Fair, you will always see someone getting dressed in a parking lot or undressed in the parking lot. Not completely naked, but trying to put on regular clothes when you've been at the fair all day. You put on your regular clothes, or you're taking off your regular clothes to put on your costume to go to the fair. It's not uncommon. Anyone that's ever been to a Renaissance Fair, you will see that. So this time we felt like we didn't want that hassle of dressing in the parking lot. We would just wear our costumes to the fair. And we decided to be fairies. I was a lily fairy. And this is a very important fact because this is going to play into the end of the story or in the middle of the story. I was a lily fairy, and I wanted my skirts. My skirt was green, and I wanted it to have like a flower petal over it with the seeds of like a lily. So imagine green skirt, red looking. I don't even think I have a picture of it. If I can find a picture of it, I will put it in here. Red looking or pink looking petals, and then black seeds going down those those petals. Just keep all that in mind for what happens when we get to the fair. So, we have our fairy wings on. My friend Charlie is probably the most creative person I've ever met in my life. She helped me construct these wings that were made of like a type of vinyl. And the way we made them was we made the wing frames. We made the wing, like we made the frame of the wing. And then we took vinyl and put it over those wings and melted the vinyl over the wiring of the wings for my fairy wings. And then because I was a lily fairy who had fallen over or whatever, I burnt my wings too. So there was like holes in my wings. And she did this with leather for her wings. And our friend, we'll call her Lisa. Lisa's wings were, she was the dream catcher fairy. So her wings were just gauze. It was just, we are very creative. Her wings were gorgeous. It had like little I forget what they are, but she had like little things in it, like dream things that people dream, like kids dream, like it was just cool. It was cool. And so, and at this time, these are twists. So these are not dreadlocks. I don't want people to get confused. I had dreadlocks, and my dreadlocks were all the way down to the middle of my back. And I wore a kind of, because normally at the fair, the Renaissance Fair, people wear hats. They wear like scarves, to kind of look more with the theme of a Renaissance fair. So I went with like a turban like headpiece with a lily sticking out of it on the side. My headpiece was bomb, okay? My wings was bomb. My corset was banging. My shirt was good. My skirt was a problem. We'll talk about it. Anyway, so we're fully dressed as fairies. 3 fairies. We get in the car from the hotel. We start driving towards the fair. All of a sudden we hear a pop and the car is swaying. And I say to my friend Charlie, I'm like, Charlie, did we just get a flat tire? And she's like, I don't think so. I was like, dude, your car is swerving. And she was like, holy shit, we did. So we pull off to the side of the road. And we're thinking, okay, we'll get the spare out. We'll change the tire really fast, and we'll be on our way. Or we'll change the tire, go to a place where we can get the tire changed, and we'll be able to go to the fair. However, how are we going to do all of that, right? Well, no, that wasn't the problem. The problem was she didn't have a spare. So we couldn't change shit. We couldn't do anything. So Lisa's mom had AAA. Now, to be fair, I would like to say that all these policies that I am quoting are policies that are probably 10 years old. Like, they have probably changed. I don't know. They may have the same policy. This is with the policy when this happened to us, probably, and this happened, I believe at least 7 years ago. So they probably changed. So my friend's Lisa's mom had AAA, and so Lisa called her mom on her cell phone and was like, "Hey, we're stuck on the side of the road. Charlie's car got a flat tire. We don't have a spare. We need to call AAA." So she calls AAA. AAA is like, "Okay, we'll come out. How many people are with you? Because we only take 2 people with the car. So that means like only two of us, there's 3 of us, only 2 of us could go with the tow truck driver with the car wherever he's taking it." So we were like, well, what? Well, we can't, one person can't just stand on the side of the road because it's actually illegal to be hitchhiking or on the side of the road without a vehicle in most states. So we were like, well, we don't know what to do. So we called AAA. We're like, hey, there's 3 of us. And the lady at the time, the operator, was like, the only option you have is to call in a second call, like a second request for AAA, and then that person will take the other person or the other 2 people behind the tow truck to wherever he's taking it. And so we were like, we had to call Lisa's mom to get okay with that, to make sure she was okay with that. She was. So we called them. So the first tow truck driver pulls up, and he has an official tow truck, and he's like, yeah, he hooked the car up, he got it up on the thing, and he's like, where do you want me to take you? And we're like, well, where's the closest tire place? And he's like, Walmart. We're like, okay, cool. And then the other tow truck, or the other AAA representative, drives up, and he's just in a regular, straight up, it looks like a standard Jeep Cherokee. Not even a Jeep, just Jeep. I don't know if it's Cherokee or not. It's just a standard Jeep truck. So we decided to let Charlie go with her car, and Lisa and I would drive with this other guy so that one person wouldn't be by themselves with this random guy. So Lisa and I get in the car with this guy. I get in the back seat. I always get in the back seat when I'm ever in a group trip, unless one of my friends wants me to navigate. We don't need that anymore. But back then, before you had apps on your phone, we would have to do the Google printout, and someone would have to read, that kind of thing. So I get in the back seat. Lisa gets in the front seat, and the guy starts talking to us, and we're gonna call him. I don't have any names. I don't know. I don't even remember this gentleman's name. We're gonna call him Roy. I just like the name Roy, so we're just gonna use that name. So Roy introduces himself, and he's like, I'm going to take you, I'm going to just follow the tow truck to Walmart, and we will, I'll drop you all off there. So before we get into his car, the tow truck driver is like, I got to fill out all this paperwork before I can leave the spot. And none of you can get in any of our, actually, I take that back. So let me roll it back. So before we actually get into Roy's car, the tow truck driver and Roy both say, we have to fill out all this paperwork, and none of you can get into our vehicles until we fill out all this paperwork. Excuse me. So we're standing on the side of the road, dressed like fairies. And I just have to say this because this is funny. Both Charlie and Lisa are white. And so we're standing on the side of the road. It looks like a trash bag fairy, a black fairy, and a redheaded fairy. And the reason why I call it her trash bag because her corset looked like it was leather, but if you didn't know it was leather, it looked kind of like a trash bag. I don't know why it looked that way, but it was so beautiful when you got up close to it. Charlie is amazing with costumes. Amazing with costumes. Anyway, so we get all the paperwork finished, and we all get into the cars, and then Roy's like talking to us, and Lisa notices that he's only talking to me. He's not talking to her. And I'm just asking him questions because I'm that type of person. Like, I'm in your car. I'm not going to just be quiet even Uber drivers, I get in the car and I'm usually the one that says, how are you? Well, they say, how are you? But I'm always like, are you having a good day? Good. Awesome. We just make a conversation. That's how I am always. Like, even at a register, I'm like, girl, you look, I make conversation. So I'm making conversation with him and he's just talking to me like in the rear view. Like, he's constantly just talking to me. He's not talking to her. Like, she's answering him. Like, we're having conversation. Like, we're all having the conversation. It wasn't just me. But he doesn't ever actually face or talk to her. So he finally says, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, may I ask why you guys are dressed like that? And we're like, oh, we're going to the Renaissance Fair. It's the Renaissance Fair that just opened here in Louisville. And we really want to go. So we came down from our city to come to this festival. He's like, oh, cool. And he was like, well, what are you guys going to do? I was like, well, it looks like we're going to be sitting at Walmart all day, so we're going to miss the festival. And he was like, oh, that's sad. And he's like, have you ever been to Louisville before? And I was like, yeah, I've come down here before. And he was like, oh, cool. And he was like, with your husband? And I was like, oh, no husband. At this time I was single. I hadn't even, me and my husband didn't even know each other at this time. And I was like, oh, no, not with a boyfriend, just with my friends. We always travel. So he's still making conversation. And my friend Lisa's, she's texting me and she's like, he cannot stop smiling at you. And I'm like, he doesn't have teeth. How do you know he's smiling at me? I don't mean to disparage his looks, but it was just a thing. Like, it was, I'm not going to talk too much shit because this man was nice to us. I'm take a sip. Take a sip. So we get to Walmart and I have to go to the restroom. And so Lisa and I are like, Charlie, do you want to stay with you while you get everything taken care of with, them checking, or do you mind if we go to the restroom? She's like, no, go ahead and go to the restroom. So we go to the restroom and I'm thinking like, we're literally going to have to be dressed like fairies, just chilling at Walmart until the car is done. And then if we still have time, we'll go to the Renaissance Fair. So I'm in the restroom and this lady walks in and she's like, why are you guys dressed like that? And I'm like, we're here for the Renaissance Fair. And she's like, oh. And then this little girl walks in and she's like, you guys are so pretty. And we're like, oh, thank you. And so, so then we go to leave and this guy stops me and he's like, or he stops both of us and he's like, are you guys here for the Renaissance Festival? We're like, yeah. He's like, oh, that's so cool. He's like, so where is it? I was like, I honestly don't know. We have directions on paper, but we're probably not going to go until all this is taken care of. He goes, oh, that sounds really awesome. And so I didn't think anything of it. And then we go to leave and I see Charlie talking to Roy. And she's talking to him like through she has a passenger side door open and she's talking to him. And then he looks over at us and he looks over at us and he says to me, and he doesn't, and I listen, I know I'm cute, but I know I'm not beautiful. I mean, I know I'm beautiful, but I know I'm not like all that. So he looks at me and he says, do you want me to take you to the Renaissance Fair? And I said, excuse me? He goes, do you want me to take you to the Renaissance Fair? I was like, all three of us? And he's like, yeah, I'll take you and I'll pick you up. And I was like, oh, so the car's going to be done soon? And the guy at Walmart's like, we don't know when it's going to be done. You have there's 9 cars in front of you guys. And we're like, holy shit. So we're sitting there and we're thinking about it. And Charlie's like, we can either sit at Walmart all day or we can go to the festival and let them call us, and then us come pick the car up. Like, he said he's going to come pick us up. So Roy's like, I will take you. He's steady looking at me. Like, it was the most uncomfortable interaction I've ever had in my damn life. Steady looking at me and saying, I will take you to the Renaissance Fair. So I was like, do you guys want to go? And we all agree, yeah, we'll go. So we get into this strange man's car. The only thing we know about him is he works for AAA. And the thing with AAA is they don't have an official tow truck company. They commission local tow truck companies to go out for service calls and things like that. So we get into Roy's car and he proceeds to drive us to the Renaissance Fair. He goes, oh, I know where it is. Everybody was excited about it coming. I know how to get there. So he proceeds to drive us to the middle of fucking nowhere to this Renaissance fair. And when I tell you it's in the middle of nowhere, it literally this is how somebody would have to tell you the directions to get to this bitch. They would be like, drive until you see the end of the earth. Make a left. And drive again until you see the end of the earth. And then make a right. And you there. That's how it felt. So we proceed to get out of Roy's car. And he goes, just call me. He tells me, he gives me his cell phone number. He's like, just call me when the car is done. And I promise you, I'll pick you up within 15 to 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, cool. Thank you. I was like, so we were thinking when we finished, like when he took us back to Walmart, we would just pay him like that. That makes sense to me. Like someone's doing something for you that, and he didn't know us. Like it wasn't like a friend doing something. This man knows us from a bag of paint. So we go to the Renaissance Fair. We pay to get in, and it's a startup Renaissance Fair. Like it was the first year of its being a thing, and we noticed that it wasn't a Renaissance Fair that we was used to, and we're trying to enjoy ourselves, but we now have to pay for a tire. The day's been interrupted. And then at some point, I think we all at one point realized that we just had a man that we don't know drop us off in the middle of fucking Louisville, Kentucky. And we don't know anybody here. And we don't know how to fucking get back to Walmart. And he could just not pick us back up. Like he could just drive on with his merry day and be like, fuck those bitches. Like he could have did that. So we're freaking the fuck out. Like we can't enjoy. First of all, the fair wasn't all that great. Most fairs, when they have been around for a while, they know how to create like shade for like most. Okay, let me give you just quick. Renaissance fairs usually have shows, and they usually have the shows in like a shaded area so that if the sun is really bright, if it's really really hot or something like that, you're not sitting directly in sunlight while you're trying to enjoy a show. Well, with new shows. Or new Renaissance fairs, they usually don't have that best coordination or whatever. And they usually have a theme about what part of the Renaissance or what era of the Renaissance they are. Are they Scottish? Are they English? Are they Italian? Like they have that. Like they have all that. Usually it's usually has something to do with Queen Elizabeth. And it's usually, which makes sense, right? Queen Elizabeth. And because it's usually Elizabethan Renaissance fairs. So, they usually had that. This one was mixed up. Like the king had a Scottish kilt on, but the queen had English garb on. It was team fuck too much, and we did not have a good time. And the people weren't very nice. Like the people working there and the patrons weren't very nice. It wasn't a good time. So let me get you back to these costumes. So we walk past this. They usually always have like these shows where the people are supposed to be like funny or whatever. The guy's blowing this horn, letting people know what time the next show is starting. And he looks at me. He goes, watermelon fairy. And I was like, watermelon fairy. So I'm thinking this dude is being racist. And listen, anybody that knows anything about me knows I will fight you in a minute. I don't have no chill. And back then I would. Now I got a kid. I calm down. I would fight you. I would have yanked someone back then. I would have been like, what the hell are you talking about? Watermelon and me being black. I was in my fucking feelings. And then my friend looks at me. She's like, we gave you a watermelon skirt. And I was like, what? I don't have no damn watermelon. And I look down. It looks like a green skirt with an overlay of pink with black dots on it. I had a watermelon skirt on. I was a fucking walking stereotype. So that was the only thing that made us like laugh. So we calmed down after that. We went and get something to eat, and then we're like, okay. So Walmart calls us and tells us that the car is done, and it's about 4:30. So we're like, okay, let's call Roy. So I call Roy, and he's like, and I call him, I'm like, hey Roy, the car is done. Are you still able to come pick us up? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll be there in a minute. 15 minutes. I mean, it wasn't even 15 minutes. I mean, I don't know where he was, but it was just 15 minutes, and it was like he was there so quick. Like it was to me it was 15 minutes because it was 4:30. I remember exactly. It was 4:30 when they called us. He picked us up at 4:15, 4:40, 4:45. So he gets there, he picks us up. And my friends are like, well, maybe you should sit in the front seat because he seems to have like a connection with you. He seems to really enjoy company. And I was like, okay, cool. So I get in the front seat and his face turns beet red, like beet red. And I was just like, okay, I think we made him uncomfortable. So I was like, I can sit. I was like, I said to my friends, like, I think I should probably sit in the back because my legs are longer than yours, or my legs are shorter than yours, and you need more leg room. I said this to Charlie, and Charlie's like, no, I think you should sit in the front seat. So I still get in the front seat. So we go to leave, and we're still like talking about like we're still talking like we're still texting each other like this dude could kill us. Like we don't know him. Why are we in his car? So we're in his car and he's just talking about all like how his brothers and him hunt and how like he's done all this stuff when he was a kid. And so we're driving this way and a police car goes this way. And then he puts his lights on, he gets right behind us. So he's pulling us over. And I think Roy thought he was calming us down by saying this. But I have a really sick sense of humor. So he goes as the cop is pulling us over, and like how you get pulled over and the cop sits behind you for a minute. And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, I've been pulled." He goes, I've been arrested by every police officer in this county." And I look at my friend and I just immediately like get so fucking nervous. And I say to him, I was like, I hope it's not for killing fat fairies. And he bust out laughing and we bust out laughing and we calm down. The police officer comes and he goes, "Roy, is that you?" He goes, "Roy, is that you?" He goes, "Who are these ladies you have in your car?" And he was like, "Why are you ladies dressed like that?" And we kind of tell him like we're going, we came back from a Renaissance fair. And he's like, "Oh, well, you look nice." And we're just like talking. And he goes, "Well, Roy and I went to high school together." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Roy, your car was going really fast." He goes, "Oh, that's because I put bigger tires on my car." He goes, "Oh, that will mess up with your speedometer." I think that's what it is. Like I don't know, the rotation on the tires, if they're not the right right size for your car. Listen, I don't know nothing about no damn tires except we had one blow. We need to fix it. That's all I know. So he says, if you put the wrong tires, especially bigger tires on your truck, on your Jeep, your speedometer will say you're going 55, but you're probably going 70 or 65 or 70. And he was like, "Oh, that's what it is." He goes, "So I need you to change these tires as soon as possible." And he said, that's, so I have to give you a ticket. He goes, "I'm actually supposed to um, tow the truck." And we all kind of like look at each other. He goes, "But you have your ladies." He's like, "You have your lady friends in here. I'll let you go. Take them where they are." He's like, "But you can't drive this truck after today. If I see you on the road with this truck, I'm going to tow it." So we're like, so we keep going. He drops us off at Walmart, and we all get out. And I said to Charlie and Delisa, I said, "Well, how much should we pay him for picking us up?" And they was like, "We'll give him a 20." So I go to give him a 20, and he's like, No. He's like, "You guys already paid." No, you guys already paid. I was like, "But no, we paid for the tow from the highway to the Walmart. We didn't pay you for your time for doing this." He goes, "No. This is this." He was like, "I was just being nice. This is." He goes, "And plus, we got pulled over." And I was like, "It's fine." I was like, "Hey, that shit happens." He was like, "Well, he's like, if you want to repay me, if you guys think about doing something later, tonight, why don't you call me and we can all go out together?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, if we do something later tonight, I'll call you so you can go with us. I'll do that. I'll make sure I call you if we do that." So, we immediately get the car. We stop off at a restaurant, get dinner, go back to the hotel, and we laugh about this whole ordeal for, I don't know, a good hour. before we fell asleep. And so to go back to the dude in the Walmart, he was staying in the hotel that we were in. So I always, if there's a hotel and there's a pool, I always swim because I don't have a pool in my, at the time I lived in an apartment downtown, so I didn't have a pool. So I always go swim at the pool. So I was going downstairs to swim, and he's like, "Hey, weren't you going to the Renaissance Fair?" I was like, "I did go to the Renaissance Fair." He goes, "We didn't see you. Me and my friends were going there. We were looking for you and your friend." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "We left early because we had to go back to Walmart to get the car." And he was like, "Oh, how'd you guys get there?" And I was like, "Oh, excuse me." I said, "The guy from AAA dropped us off and picked us up." He was like, "You should have told me you needed a ride. We would have took you." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "I appreciate that, but we were good." He goes, "Oh man, we had so much fun. We were looking for you so we could like hang out with you guys." And I was like, "Appreciate it. Next time." He was like, "Oh, next time? There's a next time?" I was like, "Oh, no. I mean, like, if it was, serendipitous for us to meet again, we would go, He was like, metaphors." And I was like, serendipity's not a metaphor, but okay, dude. So then he says, "Well, what are you doing now?" And I was like, "I'm about to go for a swim." He goes, "You want some company?" I was like, it's a pool for anyone that here at the hotel. So yeah, you can come to the pool if you want to." He was like, "Oh, I'll be down in like 30 minutes." I was like, "Okay." Now see, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with dudes. I don't have a problem with talking to dudes, telling dudes what I want. I don't have a problem. I'm a very forward person. If I like you, I tell you. If I want to hang out with you, I want to go on a date with you. If you ask me, I tell you very frankly, yes. This dude was high as fuck. And I was not about to get in the pool with a man who was high. And see, here's the thing. I'm not a lifeguard. So I can't save your ass if you drown. And I don't want you to bring your other pot smoking motherfucking friends to the pool with me by myself. So yeah, so I immediately, when he got in the elevator and went upstairs, I immediately got in the elevator next to him and went upstairs. He was on the same fucking floor as me. So my elevator dings, and he walks by. He doesn't see me, so he's walking to his room. I close the elevator door. I close the elevator door, and I'm holding the close button until I'm like, okay, he has to be gone. So then I look out and he's gone, and I run to my room. I open the door, and I go in there. And my friends are like, "You don't look like you went swimming." I was like, "I didn't." They were like, "Why?" I was like, I look at Lisa, I'm like, "The dude from Walmart." And she was like, "Oh, he's in this hotel." I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, and I, explained to her that he was high and like how he wanted to hang out. And they were like, they're like, my nickname is Cookie. And they're like, "Cookie, this is really weird for you not to want to hang out with him." He was, my friend Lisa, who was very particular taste. Very particular taste. She likes hot Asian men. That's all she likes. I don't know how, anyway, she's like, "He was kind of cute." I was like, "He was kind of high." Listen, I don't have no problem with people smoke weed. I don't got no problem. It's just, I don't want to be introduced to you that way. Anyway, so we go to sleep. The next day we drive home. And on the way home, we're talking about, how we could have been killed and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of laugh it off. And I was like, if I had a daughter and she did this shit, I would punch her in her face when she got home. I wouldn't actually punch her in the face. I really would. I'm just saying, I'd be very angry with her if she did something like this. So we get back to our home, and about a month later, I get a text from Roy. He was like, "Hey, this is Roy. If you're ever back in Louisville, we should hang out." And I was like, "Okay." I didn't actually say anything. I didn't reply to the text because at that time I literally was interested in someone else, and I was just like, no. So that is the story time of how I got stuck on the side of the road, dressed like a fairy, with my two friends, Lisa and Charlie, 3 fat fairies on the side of the road in Kentucky. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed telling it. It was probably one of my favorite stories. There's a story about the time I met Oprah and Tom Cruise and Orlando Bloom and walked the red carpet. If you want to hear that story, let me know. I'll tell you. And it's all surrounds a movie that he was in that was probably the worst movie he ever made. Orlando Bloom, the worst movie Orlando Bloom ever made. I'll tell you about it. In Kentucky. It happened in Kentucky. I'll tell you about it.